there's a certain responsibility and a certain like obligation, and to myself too, and to the spiritual experiences. My near-death experience kind of started my journey. It wasn't the end of it at all. So, but it was back in 1976, so there was no internet. I knew it happened and I knew something changed in me, but I didn't even know it might be something I could find out what it was. And through great coincidences, which of course we know spiritually they're not coincidences, I met people, teachers, and I learned, and I'm still trying to learn what happened to me in my near-death experience. I left the party. There's a little cute thing about it, because I was kind of I was drinking and smoking pot, and it seemed like I was okay to drive, but I came up with the story to tell the young lady having the party that I was too high to drive, so I could leave my car there and basically go back the next day and ask her out, because the party was way too loud to even talk to anybody. So I went, had my friend, I was staying at my parents' house, it wasn't where I was living, and drive me home. But when we were almost there, I realized my sister needed the car for the next day for work. So I had him bring me back to the party. I remember leaving the party, walking through the crowd of people. I don't remember actually leaving that house, or I have a little fuzzy vision in my mind about walking to the car, and then the next thing I remember, I was out of my body, white light all around me, looking down. The car was really smashed. My body was leaning against the tree with my legs out. There was a police officer crouching over me. And the feeling part of it is what really impressed on me. And so there wasn't much information in my mind. This was what I saw, and so behind me there was a big circle, another shade of white, and within there was a being of white, and a white being. And I was looking this way, but I knew what was behind me. It felt like the whiteness felt almost like water, or sometimes when the temperature is just so perfect out and you feel it on your skin. That's what it felt like to me. And everything, even though I still have the scar, it goes all the way back here. And, my head was smashed open, blood and all that. And but it seemed all right. Like, it didn't bother me at all. I don't know how long I was there, but it didn't seem like for years, like some people say. And when I think of the story, it only took a few seconds, but it felt longer than that. Then the being behind me said, "You have to go back, your father wants you to stay." I knew right then the father was God, not my physical father. And since everything just seemed okay, sometimes people say, did you have a choice? I didn't even think of that. It just seemed like the right thing. So I went back into my body and came to 3 days later in the hospital. I remembered it as soon as I came to. But again, it wasn't, I didn't even know to think it was this phenomenal thing. I didn't even know enough to realize this amazing thing happened. I did, and even the changes in me, I kind of discovered a little slowly as I went through my life, and things were just different. So it wasn't like I knew, a near-death experience or a spiritual experience. In a joking around way, my really only experience with that stuff would be like watching Star Trek. And, later on Star Wars, as I have my baby Yoda there. But, yes, it was discovering kind of what happened as I went along, as opposed to really knowing what happened when I came to. Yeah. Well, I was always kind of different, but so this was really a wake-up call. Something that happened, and obviously I knew this happened, but a few years ago I realized, wow, this was amazing, I was living in Colorado, then where the accident happened was back in the northeast of the United States, and I was visiting my parents. I went back to Colorado. My mom kind of bribed me to come back east and go into business with my dad, And one day, and this happened pretty quickly, but one day I was sitting in my apartment and someone just knocks on my door, and this beautiful woman was there, and she said she was a sister of a friend of mine from Colorado, one of the people I mentioned my experience to, and this woman at the door said, "My sister told me some cool things about you, and I know a teacher that teaches about what happens after we die, and I want to introduce you to him." And just that she showed up at the door without me even looking to find out. So she introduced me to this teacher who I started to get a little glimpse into what happened to me. I was brought up in a Jewish family, not very religious. We would go to temple on the major holidays. I was bar mitzvahed. I went to Hebrew school. I didn't really pay much attention, but even in learning about the Old Testament, some of the magical things that happened, those were what interested me, And it's looking back, I mean, I'm still kind of naive. I look still, in a nice way, look at really people as good, and which in some ways is naive. But I had, before my near-death experience, I actually saw my passed-away grandfather in a movie theater, and again, I didn't make that big a deal of it to myself. Like, it just, I don't know what I was thinking, because I didn't really think about it. But I guess I'd like to think it was like foreshadowing of that it was just part of my nature and part of my knowing that these spiritual things are normal, as opposed to from the perspective of not. My mom died when she was pretty young, so maybe like 15 years after my near-death experience, so I was in my 30s, and I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, my dad told me my mother used to meditate, and I never knew that. And I was like, really? Wow, I can't believe that. So, yeah, it was kind of bumbling and fumbling through this experience. And when I look back, like, why didn't something in me make a big deal about seeing my grandfather? And it was kind of a profound experience, but I didn't really mention it to anybody again. So I do meditate very regularly, and I do other spiritual journal writing. Those are the two main things. But sometimes I just all of a sudden get a hit of stuff like, oh, I was kind of shown that. And I'm very kinesthetic. So and it's interesting. I'm finally getting serious about writing my story, but my experience is more of my feeling experience as opposed to what happened visually. And so I'm trying to put, how do I write the book about my feelings as opposed to about, the story out in the world. And but that's how I related to my near-death experience. And I was, still trying to fit, you can tell I'm still not sure what happened. To tell you the truth. It's like it is, but it had a big effect on me. So this woman introduced me to this teacher, and we're talking about Rumi. I have my Rumi puppet there. He was a Mevlevi sheikh, and they're the Sufis that follow the teachings of Jalaluddin Rumi. So for the first 10 years of my journey after that, I was studying Rumi very seriously and learning about. So the love he talks about is the closest thing that I've seen written that describes that love, that's I experienced. Meeting this Sufi sheikh, right away he said to me, "You're a sensitive." And I knew that was a good thing because he has a book and his teacher referred to him as a sensitive. And he taught me a lot of stuff. And but the thing that really anchored it in for me to start to really realize what was going on. So after my near-death experience, my hands, and it still happens quite a lot, if I touch someone, they become very warm instantly. And again, my feeling, my kinestheticness is a big part of me. So part of the whole story was I got in another car accident after I was working for my dad for a while. It wasn't such a bad car accident, but the next day I woke up, my shoulders and lower back were hurting. And I knew it was partially from stress and a little bit from the accident. For some years, I spent traveling, doing spiritual things, and then worked for my dad. And so it was a lot of years of just the spiritual stuff was a lot of work too. And I thought I just needed a vacation, so I went up to Vermont and visited one of the other students of the Sufi sheikh. And he suggested I try a polarity therapy treatment. And I did, and I had another profound experience. I was on the table. So polarity is very gentle, hands-on healing work. And I was just having flashbacks from my childhood, all this stuff, a lot of emotions coming up. When I got off the table, I was going to complain to the woman that it was so short because she said it would be an hour. I looked up at the clock before I did it, and I was on the table for 3 hours. So it was like another timeless experience with this incredible loving energy coming in. She suggested I do more sessions and knew someone near where I lived. After a few sessions with this woman, the woman said, I'm teaching a class. I think you'd like it. So I started to learn to do polarity. When I started using my hands, a lot of the stuff I learned in my near-death experience, a lot of the stuff I learned from the Sufi sheikh started to become real to me because I could really feel what was going on with people. And my intuition was, used to be. And even now I work over Zoom, I hold my hands up like this because I'm feeling the energy, and I'm holding the energy. Even though people are, like yesterday I had someone in India, which I love when they're so far away, but it's like they're right there and my hands are on them healing. So there's so many stories of things that have happened that just led me to understand more and more. You don't want to be arrogant about it, but you have to be kind of arrogant about it because you have to trust. There's a thing of knowing that you know. Something that happened was I was teaching a class at the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut. It was on mindfulness and meditation, and the woman said, I'm teaching a class about death and dying. And I said, I had a near-death experience, and I'd heard that term, but I didn't realize it was a thing. And she said, you have to come talk to my class. So I posted something on Facebook, and so many people were interested. And it was kind of like, what a relief. I can share this part of me that is so important, and that I've been almost hiding for all these years. I am so blessed in what I get to do. Sometimes I work with people and they get better in 2 seconds. Not always, and so I was kind of whining to myself, that hasn't happened in a long time. And then a couple of days ago, I got a text from someone saying, and she had one session with me, and she said, I want to make another session. The energy really shifted, and now I'm walking. And even though I'm using 2 poles, I haven't walked in 7 years. And it's like, wow. And it was just like, in a certain way, it's really cool, and I'm just grateful that I can get that affirmation, because even though these really amazing things happen, part of me, almost every time I work with someone, there's a part of me beforehand goes, how in the world am I going to help this person? I just, and don't know how. But then I have to remind myself, no, I do. I have to be doing it to know. It's not like I know in my head. It's I know in my doing and in my actions. And when I see people, I do see this goodness in them that is, this grand goodness. And when I can help them connect with that, and then they heal, which is really amazing. And I like when I have people in different countries. So this person was in South Korea, which I had never had a client before. But she was talking to me about her mother, and her mother was 90. So I was trying to say to her, your mom's can't live too much longer, and because I just had a feeling about what was about to happen. But basically a lot of the light energy came in, and there was this beautiful yellow light around the mother. And it has happened before when I see that, and it's not that different from the the healing is not that different from the energy of dying, which seems kind of, people don't really want to hear that. So after the session, she sent me a text the next day saying my mom passed away. And I said, you did a real blessing for your mom to have that session with me, because this light's around her now in the afterlife. And it was... Right, even now there's different emotions. Like part of me is very happy about it, and the other part, it's kind of sad that she passed away. It's nice to talk to someone who gets it, because sometimes it's hard to talk to people but there's been a time in my practice when I was dealing with a lot of people that were about to pass, I had someone, it wasn't part of my practice, it was a friend of mine, I think it was about 3 years ago, and a lot of my friends are spiritual, and so in our friends group, people are all worried about her, and so something came up where I wasn't going to go see her, but it just kind of led me to it. My daughter wanted to go see a Broadway show in Manhattan with some friends, so I took her there, and I looked up the subway to the hospital where this woman was right there, so I went, and people were, I don't know on what social media, people were saying, oh, she's not doing well, and I said, she's doing really well, she's getting ready to pass. And I was in there, and her family was there, everyone's putting this energy on her to stay alive, and so she was very sick. She asked me to work on her, and I did, and it balanced out, and she got very relaxed. Her mom came, who I knew this woman since we were like 5 years old, so her mom knew me, and she wanted to get me out of there, and this woman, her mom said, you should leave to me, and she grabbed my shirt and said, stay, in this voice, like this powerful voice from, barely being able to move, and I just stayed with her, and then I could see she kind of left her body. She was still alive then. And then, I left because all the family wanted me to leave so more family members could come there. And it was, again, quite a blessing and a joy to be there, part of that situation. So a lot of my amazing experiences after my near-death experience came working with teachers and people that knew more than me. And I encourage people to get people that can help them to meditate and, do the work to get to that place. Because if you have to love your karma. That's kind of our mission here. So learn how to love those things. And it's not always easy. When I help people open up in that joyful, loving way, that's right there. It's kind of a two-edged sword when you're helping people passing, because there's a sadness about people passing and you miss them. I had a similar thing with my mom. I was sitting in the limo for the funeral. I was laughing 1 second, crying the next second. I'm sure people thought I was like crazy, but it was just the joy and then the sadness were so right there. But that joy, right, I say when people say I want to have a near-death experience, I say, no, you don't want to have that, because you want your body to be healthy. You want to choose into the spiritual light, and there's ways to do that, and that's all there is to it. I've had so many magical experiences. It's easy to remember, and it is the memory of my near-death experience really serves me well, but there are other ways to have that experience too. Yeah, some of the things were with the Sufi sheikh, and he could do, so as I said, I'm writing my book, so the person who told me about polarity therapy, it was in Vermont. And there's a big thing in the Mevlevi dervishes about roses. And I like roses. And, they're symbolic of the spiritual opening. And so the guy there had a rose plant in his house. And he said it would only open a few days before the teacher came. And it opened a little while before I came there. And I didn't even put it together in my mind, because he said something kind of funny to me. And then I'm wondering if that had something to do with it. The Sufi sheikh, he was teaching this class in St. Patrick's Cathedral in Manhattan, and I asked him if I could be in the class. It was on sacred geometry, and he said, you can't. These are advanced students. You don't know anything about it. And he ended up being right. But he said, you could be my assistant, and basically that meant I could carry his briefcase, sweep the floor, move the chairs, do, all the menial tasks. And so I was there during one of the breaks. He said, come into my office, and he was always joking around. So it was hard to tell if he was just pulling my leg. But he said, give me your hands, and he put my hands in his like this, and then he said, there, you got it. Then I said, what? He didn't answer me, and then I went to walk away. He goes, no, give me your hands again. He goes, there, now you got it. And I didn't ask him what he meant, because normally if I asked him things, he said, you don't need to know that. But I noticed then my clarity about the gift I got in my near-death experience really stepped up a lot, and there was less fumbling my way through it and knowing that I had a journey and a path to take at that point. So that was something really magical. There's someone I see in person, and her spine was going like this, and her posture, she was off to the side, leaning forward all the time. And I went into, I don't know how I'm going to help this person, but so I see them in person, and I did what I do, and I went back the next week, and her spine was straight. And the next week I had a check, because I was wondering because it was like, yes, wow, like it was so amazing. And she had been that for years, and it was just, and part of me doesn't even, like right now, I want to go back and check again, because part of me is like, how did that even happen? How could I say that I did something that facilitated that to happen, but I know that I did. So it takes a while to digest that stuff, for me anyway. Yeah, it doesn't really feel that different. So I do I like it when people are really far away. I like sci-fi. There are people like in Australia, it's a different day there. I think of it as like time travel in my sci-fi mind. But it is, when I do that, it is like they're right there, and I'm holding the energy around them. I even move my hands like this, like so I'll be looking at someone and I see sometimes it's just darkness in a certain part of their body. I'll hold my hands like this and then start to see that alleviating. And sometimes I see a hand of some spiritual being reaching into the person and working on them. That happens once in a while. Something that happened not too long ago was this man, I don't even know who it was, and the spirit was coming and observing the sessions with this woman. She had a stroke, and she's coming along slowly. It's not one of those instantaneous healings, but so he was there for a few of the sessions, just kind of observing the healing and her illness. And then all of a sudden he was gone, and then there were like these 3 little angels there, but they were there to observe her getting better. And I thought, oh good, I hope that means she's actually getting better. And part of that was in the beginning when I was working on her, it's like I'm kind of drawn to things, so it was more in her energy field, and then it started to shift more to her body. And so she started talking some, so there are signs that she's getting better, but I'm hoping that these 3 angels, they're there to observe her get better. In this case, they're not participating, and so it's kind of interesting. They're there to learn something. I think sometimes they come in to just get some of the human experience. So, we're kind of cool because we can exist on the physical and the spiritual and all the different levels, and the spiritual beings can only exist on the spiritual level. So I think they come in to learn about that from us. Sometimes it happens in 1 second. So yeah, so there's, as you say that, the energy starts to come in. So yeah, you can focus into your heart a little bit instead of into your head. And sometimes we get to understand it, sometimes it's not at all. There you go. See, you're good and quick to be able to do that. So you asked about working on myself. It's way harder than working on someone else, that's for sure.
I became aware of my
Yes, so there's burdens in the world that, it's easy to say this stuff and know it for other people, and then for ourselves it's kind of set up that way so we have our karma and we get to learn. So there's part of remembering to love yourself. And you can let your heart open up and let that energy be there for yourself. So there's a being in spirit that you kind of relate to as your daughter, which is interesting. Take a big breath in through your mouth and out through your mouth. Now, feel into your belly, to your gut. So it is kind of like there are infinite levels and dimensions in the spirit, and you know a lot, and then there's stuff outside of what you know. And so sometimes in one way, if you knew this, you would be healed, but since you don't know it, it's something outside of that. So there are levels and dimensions that are beyond even what you know. Okay. How are you feeling now?
Well, immediately it was wild. Uh, Immediately, Lawrence, I felt a shift.
Cool.
There was a lot of intense pain, and it went like all of the intensity went away immediately.
Yeah, the burden. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you don't need to know. There's part of it that you could imagine. So I was seeing a scene. It almost looked like in ancient Greece, but I think it's not in ancient Greece. It just is symbolic of a place in spirit that you're not aware of. And it is just understand. There's always more. There's always more levels. And like I said, in one way, if we knew it, we wouldn't be having something going on for us, and it's there to teach us. So there's more levels, and there's always further to go spiritually.
And there was also something became around like I hold tension in my jaw, like this folding here, center of that connected to the neck.
Yeah, and then there's stuff lining up in your heart and your gut. You have a lot of like that you should know. Yeah, I know what you mean, because when I'm working with people, I kind of want to know. I kind of want to fix them right away. It's like sometimes I remember I don't need to know, and so even to fix you, you don't necessarily need to know. So sometimes when I get a intuitive hit that I've passed this like a karmic test, I have no idea what I did. Like I didn't handle it very well at all. I knew something changed partially because of how the world's treating me, but there's a whole lot of opening up there. And in one way, what you know is small compared to this. Meditating and journal writing is really important to do, and you don't have to do it perfectly. A lot of people say they can't meditate. I've been meditating regularly for many years, and some days it's blah, 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 blah. And some days it's this wonderful, joyful thing, but there's that. Part of my writing my book is going back and looking at other interviews I did, and there was one, it's called Near-Death Experience Healing Better Than What You Could Imagine or something like that. And I got so much out of watching it. There was so much healing energy coming from the video. It was a live thing, so I was able to work with people. It was just, I don't know, I would encourage people to watch it because I worked with people in different areas, and I was feeling myself healing in those areas when I was watching it. So, yeah, have hope, find out what's awesome about you and do it, even if it's a little thing. I encourage people and like see the good in other, be of service. I mean, just see in one way in the near-death experience, we get to experience heaven without our body, but then we want to try to get heaven on earth here, basically. A lot of people come to me after they've tried every medical thing in the world, and you feel kind of bad for them that they don't know about this up front, and sometimes, all sorts of stories, but I love it. It's the coolest thing in the world. It is like Star Wars to me.